the SEC has issued their largest ever whistleblower reward for $279 million.
Yeah. So interestingly, to think about this is the SEC issues the largest reward ever for whistleblowers. This Whistleblower Act was created after the 2007, 2008 financial crisis that kind of brought us into the recession. That was the worst time financially for the United States since the Great Depression. So it's called the Dodd-Frank Act. It was created to keep the banks from doing any really dodgy stuff on Wall Street and a lot of different things that were involved in it. It also allowed for people to be whistleblowers and say, hey, this bank's doing something really dodgy. You should definitely investigate them. And how they do it is they reward you based on what kind of involvement there is for the whistleblowers. So they'll give you anywhere from 5 to 10% of the revenue collected from the dodgy or illegal activity from those banking entities. So this is a reward of $279 million. That means there was about a $4 billion problem that was going on that the SEC figured out. And so I haven't really pinpointed it. The SEC doesn't tell you all the details. They keep all of the information from the whistleblowers, the companies, everything's kind of hidden. Again, it's the wealthiest people in the world. They don't want to get put out on Front Street. You know, the guy that could have been a whistleblower could be somebody that's significant. It could be a CEO of a large corporation. Whatever the case is, he thinks that it's being done inappropriately. But the Dodd-Frank Act, it ties back into, I think, what's going on with the banking crisis as well right now. So the Dodd-Frank Act required any bank, and in 2007 and 2008, any bank that had over $50 billion in assets had to follow a stringent requirement for investing their funds and loaning their funds to different people, companies, and different activities that they were doing. But in 2018, well, Trump said while he was running that he's going to revoke the Dodd-Frank Act. That was the first thing he's kind of running on that, said one of the first things I'm going to do is revoke the Dodd-Frank Act. He didn't. He waited until 2018 and he modified the Dodd-Frank Act, which allowed regional banks to under $250 billion to not be under the same type of scrutiny for checks and balances on what they're investing in. So now we have a banking crisis, and to give you an idea, is institutions have custody of clients' assets but do not function as lenders or traditional banks. The new law provided for lower capital requirements and leverage ratios. So if they're loaning money, they don't have to have as much capital in the bank to loan. So now you have places like Silicon Valley Bank turns around and says, we're going to loan out all this money. We don't have all this money to actually loan. Well, now our depositors are calling for their money. We go belly up. So any bank that has under $250 billion in assets is kind of exempt from the same kind of scrutiny that the larger banks like JP Morgan, Bank of America, they're under. He also, with this, he changed the residential mortgage loans that depositors can hold for institutions in 2018 for the Federal Housing Act and Freddie Mac and Fannie Mae for actually loaning money, not having as strict requirements for the people purchasing homes, which can be looked at as a good thing, can be looked at as a bad thing, because that was the big problem in the 2008 financial crisis, was credit default swaps on mortgages. So people and banks were giving out mortgages to non-qualified customers or buyers. And then the bank would take that paper and they would sell it in a big bulk. You know, they'd have 150 mortgages worth, $100 million, and then they would sell it at, maybe $1, half the cost of what they lent out. And then that created all the problems and ended up Freddie Mae and Fannie were holding the bulk of those mortgages, and they had to clear them out somehow when they couldn't. And now you saw the collapse of 2008. So it's interesting to see. We're not going to run into the same kind of collapse, but I think the real estate issue commercially, and then you also have the less strict requirements on these regional banks, probably should have left it at 50 billion or more in assets. And you should have stuck with that. I don't think we would be actually seeing this at all, because their book started getting messy in 2019. This was created in 2018.
Yeah.
So